Long before AI and technology threatened to take over, some anime had already predicted what would happen if the very thing we created for our convenience ended up turning on us. In fact, it's safe to say that the 80s and 90s era gave birth to the techno-thriller era of the anime industry. These anime didn't stick to the conventional hero versus villain, reincarnation, isekai type of genres, but rather explored plots that reflected a world run by machines, with humans reduced to nothing but puppets dancing to their tune. Today, we're going to explore 11 such techno-thriller anime classics that defined Cold Wire intrigue in the 80s and 90s. Before we get into our explanation though, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Akira, 1988. Akira is an anime that fits into almost any genre like water into a glass, but the techno-thriller genre is the one that captures its essence perfectly. Set in the dystopian Neo-Tokyo of 2019, the anime follows the story of two childhood friends who are now part of a biker gang. The main protagonist, Shotaro Kaneda, is the leader of the gang, while his friend Tetsuo Shima is an ordinary teen whose fate is about to spiral out of control. After an accident, Tetsuo develops psychic powers and soon becomes a target worth acquiring by the high powers of Neo-Tokyo. What follows is an epic tale of power, corruption, and the gradual loss of humanity to evolution. The visuals in Akira do a phenomenal job of silently speaking volumes, like the silhouettes of what's left of the previous world, or the overtly in-your-face cyberpunk, or the cheery color schemes splashed into the backdrop to accompany scenes of power struggles and moral decline. All of it perfectly depicts the stark contrast of what's real and what's not. Released in the late 80s, Akira felt even more relatable and prophetic to audiences, particularly during a time when Japan's economic boom, the rise of biotechnology, and the imminent fear of nuclear devastation loomed large. All in all, Akira is certainly one of the cornerstones of the techno-thriller anime genre, setting the stage for others while raising a mirror to the fact that technology might not always be the villain, but it can surely turn humanity into one. Ghost in the Shell, 1995. Second on our list is another epic techno-thriller anime, Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell. Set in the year 2029 in a dystopian fictional city called Newport, humans and machines are leading a mutually coexistent life. The protagonist is the badass cyborg cop from Section 9, Major Motoko Kusanagi, who's out hunting down a mysterious hacker on the prowl that's hijacking people's memories and wiping out their very sense of self. But on her quest to nab the hacker, she begins questioning just what it means to be a human. If the body's synthetic and the mind is nothing but data, what differentiates her, a human, from the machines? The visuals do justice to the whole theme of existential dread that's set throughout the anime, with haunting shots of faceless crowds that blur the line between man and machine, reality, and illusion. The movie's set design draws heavy inspiration from a futuristic view of Hong Kong, portraying a technologically advanced melting pot of different people, much like the anime. The anime resonates with questions that we, in 2025, sometimes wrestle with ourselves, be it the AI consciousness or the supposed government surveillance through technology. In 1995, this anime eerily prophesied a future that feels closer to reality with each passing year. Cyber City Oedo 808, 1990 to 91. Cyber City Oedo 808 is one of those underrated gems that didn't get the hype it truly deserved. Set in the year 2808, it offers a fresh perspective on living in a world where the convicts themselves are tasked with maintaining law and order throughout the cybernetic city of Oedo. This anime follows the story of three convicted felons, Sengoku, Gogol, and Benton, who are recruited by the cyber police to hunt down the cyber offenders in exchange for lighter sentences. But the catch, which is the very reason the anime is a part of our list today, is that each of the three felons is wearing an explosive collar that would detonate if they disobeyed given orders or missed a deadline. The false sense of control and freedom, yet on a high-tech leash, is what makes Cyber City Oedo 808 so distinctly techno-thriller. The sprawling symbol of Oedo is a symbol of technological progress, replete with holographic billboards that suffocate under the claustrophobic digital surveillance at all times. It's easy to draw parallels to current times with facial recognition on our devices and the feeling that your phone is always listening to you, which is nothing but surveillance capitalism. realism. Apart from the vibrant and gaudy visuals, the pulsing soundtrack of Cyber City Oedo 808 truly steals the show by making everything happening on screen even more dynamic and dangerous, leaving the audience with bated enthusiasm. So, although this anime didn't get the mainstream fame that Akira and Ghost in the Shell got, it's a techno-thriller gem that you just can't miss. Angel Cop, 1989 to 1994. Angel Cop is an anime that creeps up on you and refuses to leave your side. That's how visceral and raw it is. It's a 6-part OVA that envisions a dystopian Japan with a story set in a future Tokyo riddled with corruption, terrorism, and cybernetic experiments that have taken over. The dynamic officer from the Special Security Force, Angel, who doesn't shy away from using any means necessary, is determined to deliver justice in the city once and for all. Her partner, Raiden, accompanies her on a mission, and one day, the duo stumbles upon a group of psychic vigilantes called the Hunters that claim to be cleansing society of the filth that they're having to deal with. But that's when things take a much darker turn. The anime, along with highlighting the tussle between man and technology, also sheds light on the reality of just how low humanity goes, not bothered by the chaos it causes in its wake. The cybernetic elements are what truly take the anime from a regular run-of-the-mill cat-and-mouse chase between the cops and criminals to more of a techno-thriller route. The hand-drawn animation style totally elevates the overall aura of the story and gives it that much-needed rawness that no amount of top-notch CGI can in any way match up to. And while the anime falls into the ultra-violent category, that just makes this techno-thriller gem even more unforgettable. Blackmagic M66, 1987. Before Ghost in the Shell made Masamune Shirao a household name among anime fans, there was Blackmagic M66, a classic techno-thriller that was the perfect blend of sci-fi and the signature 80s cybernetic paranoia. The story follows Sybil, a freelance journalist who stumbles upon a military plane crash that was carrying 2 military-grade androids. One of the 2 androids locks in on its target, and the granddaughter of the creator, Sybil, finds herself in a chaotic fix and an almost impossible task of saving the young girl. What makes Blackmagic stand out from the rest of the entries on our list today is the unfiltered way the plot thickens. There are no ulterior government conspiracies at play, nor any big corporation trying to conduct a social experiment, just the stark, cold reality which can be attributed to human error. Bearing a very slight touch-and-go resemblance to Terminator, although the two are in completely different leagues, Blackmagic M66 also resonated with the militarization of the 80s and the spreading of AI. Visually, the anime maintains a general steel blue, icy tone that reflects the illusion of control. The anime also brought to light just what happens when technology takes over without any restraint and stripped of empathy and emotion. It may be short, at just about an hour, but Blackmagic M66 surely sets the stage for the other techno-thrillers to follow. Battle Angel, 1993. Battle Angel, based on the manga Battle Angel Alita, is another one of those fits-in-most genres titles with enough elements to make it a strong contender in the techno-thriller lineup. The anime does a great job of balancing out the brutal action sequences on one hand, with the very moving, emotionally packed scenes that haunt the viewers and stick around long after the credits roll on the other hand. It's set in a post-apocalyptic world divided into the wasteland called the Scrapyard and the elite flamboyant utopia called the City of Zalem. The anime tells the story of Gali, a cyborg who's been discarded in a pile of junk in the Scrapyard. Dr. Oedo rescues her and builds her back up. Even after getting a kickstart on her life again, Gali has no idea where she came from and knows nothing about how she even ended up in the Scrapyard. What follows next is Gali's story of survival and how she, a cyborg, finds her place in a world that's lost touch with its humanity. And that's just what makes Battle Angel such a perfect entry in the techno-thriller category. The way it still holds on to the human core despite being wrapped by steely, cold machinery. The anime also reflects on the disparity that exists between the haves and the have-nots, and the privileged and the forgotten, and the decline in morality that exists between them. The visuals also work beautifully to complement the theme of the anime, with the backdrop depicting a place that looks alive but is dead inside, again hinting at the blurred line between humans and machines. Patlabor, the movie, 1989. Patlabor, the movie, starts off as a typical sci-fi story that involves police in Mecca, but it takes a turn towards a more cerebral and eerie territory before you know it. Set in a futuristic reimagination of Tokyo in 1999, giant robots called labors handle all the industrial work around the city. Things take a turn for the worse when these robots start malfunctioning and operating on their own accord, throwing the entire town into chaos. Part mystery, part philosophical music, things, this slow-burning techno-thriller is true Mamoru Oshii genius. What makes Patlabor the movie so fitting for this list is how normal and realistic they've kept the level of sci-fi, wherein it doesn't deal with far-off galaxies or alien tech, but a very organic retelling of the dangers of automation, surveillance, and just how much power we hand over to machines we barely understand ourselves. Ironically, the anime was hinting at things we're very much experiencing in the current era of technology, but with AI going off rough sometimes, realistic robots displaying human-like traits and behavioral patterns, and the overall very obvious over-reliance on automation. The suicide that kicks off the story isn't just a plot device, it carries a deeper meaning, and it's a metaphor for the cost of human lives that are at stake behind advances in innovation and technology. The anime is, at some points, uncomfortable to watch when the reality of just how plausible this work of fiction is creeps up your spine. Patlabor 2, the movie, 1993. Unlike the first film, Patlabor 2 instead focused on the mechanical spectacle, going for a slow-burning psychological route. Set in 2002, the anime opens with a chaotic scene wherein the destruction of a UN labor team in Southeast Asia spirals into a full-blown political and military crisis back in Japan. The Special Vehicle Division again makes an entry, not to face any terrorists, but rather to come to terms with the fact the very piece that they're looking for might just be a myth. This movie isn't as action-heavy compared to the previous film. Instead, it questions whether the fragile systems that were built for our comfort and ease also possess the power to forever strip us of control and identity. Most of the tension that's built doesn't come from the fighting scenes, but rather from the eerie silence that permeates throughout the towering skyscrapers and, contradictorily, the empty highways. Unlike most mecha anime, which ends with a grand showdown, Patlabor 2 ends with an uneasy silence because, well, it's yet another reality check for the audience that real-world conflicts rarely have a clean resolution. Patlabor 2, much like its counterpart, feels like a warning that's aging a little too well in terms of AI warfare and cyber propaganda. And that's exactly why it earns its spot on our list today, as it's more in line with the thinking man's techno-thriller. Instead of glorifying machines, it humanizes their consequences, making you realize that the most dangerous weapon in the film isn't a robot, it's a mindset. Genocyber, 1994. Genocyber is the core of techno-thriller on steroids. This 5-episode OVA is set in a futuristic timeline where the concept of nations as a whole has gone kaput and the ones that rule are the corporations. The Kuryu group has one weapon in its arsenal unlike any other. The Genocyber is a grotesque amalgamation of human and machine stemming from the conscious power of two psychic sisters, Lain and her crippled sister Diana. What follows next is obvious. An intense tussle for power that brought with it nothing but a sea of destruction that, after a point, resembles a chaotic fever dream. Genocyber takes the very root concept of techno-thriller and turns it into an anime. It highlights the shocking reality of what happens when technology is given unnecessary power, which ends up giving it the upper hand. It's brutal, messy, and often described by some fans of the genre as nonsensical, but that's kind of the point. It's an unfiltered voice against human exploitation in the name of technological growth and evolution, and what happens if it's left unchecked. Fair warning, it's another one of those ultra-violent animes that leans quite heavily into grotesque body horror, flesh melting into steel, faces tearing open, and cities burning into cinders. But that's one of Genocyber's USPs. You can't look away even when you want to. Sure, the film was heavily criticized for having tons of holes in the plotline, but it made sure to leave a mark on the genre, for better or for worse. Roujin Z, 1991. Now, this one takes a different approach to techno-thriller than the rest of the entries on our list today. Roujin Z takes place in a near-future Japan where the government develops a unique, advanced robotic bed called the Z001. The bed is basically designed to care for the elderly. What is supposed to be a symbol of technological progress turns out to go in an entirely different direction when the prototype is tested on an old man named Kijiro Takazawa, and, well, things go unsettlingly haywire, to say the least. The advanced bed is updating itself and slowly developing a mind of its own, blending human emotions with artificial intelligence. Soon enough, it literally rolls through the city to fulfill its quest. Written by Akira's creator, Katsuhiro Otomo, Roujin Z feels like a natural extension of the same techno-anxiety that haunted much of the late 80s and early 90s anime. Although the concept is fresh and doesn't fit with the typical themes we've seen today, Roujin Z stands out with its clever and satirical twist on techno-thriller animes. Serial Experiments Lain, 1998. What's a techno-thriller without a touch of psychological horror? Serial Experiments Lain is just that. If Akira showed us the chaos of machines and Ghost in the Shell explored the soul inside them, Serial Experiments Lain takes us headfirst into just what happens when the machine becomes you. Set in a fictional version of late 90s Japan, the story follows a girl, Lain Iwakura, a quiet and awkward teenager who gets pulled deeper into the Wired, a vast virtual network that feels eerily similar to the early internet. Strange things start happening, and what begins as an email from a dead classmate soon turns into something much deeper and darker. A spiral into questioning one's own identity, consciousness, and the meaning of actual human existence in a world that somehow merged with the digital one. Unlike most techno-thrillers, Lain isn't about explosions, rogue AI, or neon-lit battles. It's psychological, eerie, and way ahead of its time. The anime skillfully foresees and takes us into a world where digital identity and the cost of virtual surveillance are at the expense of human lives. It feels almost prophetic when you watch it today, as it basically predicts online personas, data merging with consciousness, and even the emotional disconnect of living too much through a screen. Quietly disturbing, and yet with a storyline that packs a punch, Serial Experiments Lain is an excellent addition to our list today. Marvelous verdict! Techno-thriller anime from the 80s and 90s weren't just about cool gadgets or action-packed sequences, they also explored the uneasy relationship between humans, technology, and the future. Their visions still feel relevant today, reminding us that the line between control and chaos is much thinner than we think. So, which of these techno-thriller anime gems do you feel perfectly predicted the current situation we're in with technology? Let us know if we missed any techno-thriller gems that you feel should have been on the list. Who knows, maybe we'll make a whole video on it in the future. Unfortunately, that's all we got for this one though, so we'll see you in the next. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe to Marvelous Anime for more such marvelous videos.